guys. Please ask questions as we go along. Comments, interrupt me or send me a chat, whatever you need so that we can make sure that all of this is easily understood and applicable when you're working with people. So first off, my name's Brooke Hurt, and I am the Interim Director for the Center for New Directions here at ISU. We're the counseling center for the College of Technology. And so what we want to talk about today is handling a mental health emergency. Let's start by defining what a mental health emergency is. So some things that would qualify are panic attacks. A panic attack might look like somebody struggling to breathe. They might be gasping. They might be physically shaking. They might be crying. Hyperventilating is a big one. It could also look like that person has become frozen or has blanked out. You know, they just, you're talking to them and there's no response. That could be a freezing reaction and a type of panic. Some people, when they have panic attacks, it affects right here. Other people, they kind of shrink down and huddle, tend to do fetal position kind of things. It's not always obvious when a person is having a panic attack, but those are some of the signs that you might see. It might also look like that person has just suddenly become disoriented. They might look like they're, maybe they are acting kind of dizzy, or their words don't flow right. They can't find the words that they want to use to say what they need to say. Everything's disjointed and not connected. So that might be how you could tell if somebody's having a panic attack. Similar to a panic attack, but different, is an anxiety attack. One of the biggest differences is that an anxiety attack tends to be a slow buildup. A panic attack seems to be something that comes on suddenly and just happens. With an anxiety attack, you might notice throughout the day that the person gets more agitated, that the person is a little bit more irritable, that they might become more distressed as they're talking to you. The difference again also is with the panic attack, you can tend to calm them down a little bit more quickly and it dissipates. With an anxiety attack, it might take longer to help them actually calm down because it has been building for so long. So far, does anybody have any questions about the difference? Okay, the next thing that you might want to look for is self-harm. Self-harm can include cutting, burning, scratching, carving words or symbols into the skin, hitting or punching themselves, head banging, piercing their skin with something sharp. So sometimes people will take like hairpins out of their hair and they're digging. A lot of times it can even be like this pen where they just want to feel pressure. And so it's not even necessarily meant to actually do harm, but they're pushing hard enough to leave the little circle on their hand or a little mark. Okay. It could be pulling out their hair, or if they have a wound or a scratch, they could be picking at it and making it worse. Sometimes if they have acne, they'll sit and scratch and pick at it. Those are all types of self-harm. Sometimes you'll notice a person hiding their arms, hiding their legs, sitting like this, because they're trying to inflict some pain on themselves, because physical pain is more tolerable for some people than emotional pain. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about is suicidal ideation. These are people who are talking about wanting to die. These are people that make comments like, I wish this would end, and they're talking about pain, emotional pain or physical pain. They're saying things like, the world would be better if I wasn't here, or everybody else would be able to do what they want to do if they didn't have to deal with me. I'm a burden. I am struggling and I cause problems for people. It would just be better if they didn't have to deal with me if I wasn't here. Some of that talk we call passive suicidal ideation. Passive suicidal ideation is when the person talks about wanting to be dead or wishing that they could die, but they don't actually have any intent to commit suicide and they don't have a plan. Active suicidal ideation is when the person is thinking about dying and they have an intent to commit suicide. They have a plan for what they're going to do. Okay. Questions on those 4 types of mental health emergencies? Any questions on how you would recognize that, or if there's other types of things that you want to ask about? Okay. If you guys think of questions as I'm going along, please let me know. So you might see somebody exhibiting some of these behaviors, but how do you actually know if it's an emergency, if it's a mental health emergency? They might tell you. They might actually say to you, I'm having a panic attack, or I'm feeling really anxious, I'm feeling overloaded. They might start crying. They might get up and leave the room abruptly. You could be in the middle of talking to them about something and they just have to leave. It could be that they're talking to themselves, muttering, saying, things like, gosh, Brooke, I can't believe you did that. Why would, I can't, you're crazy. They might start pacing or becoming very fidgety in their seat, rocking the leg a lot. When people get nervous and they do that, where the leg is jumping up and down, and that intensifies. They might look distressed, like they might come in and look different than they normally do. Like if they normally have their hair done, and for women, they might normally wear makeup, but today they're not. It could be that their clothes look rumply and they're not neat and tidy anymore when normally they are. They look like they haven't showered. They could, sometimes anxious people are rubbing their hands a lot. They wring their hands, or they wipe them on their pants a lot because they're nervous. They could be looking at the floor or avoiding making eye contact when normally they would be engaged with you. They might be gasping for air. They might be hyperventilating. You might hear a lot of heavy sighs where they're like, that kind of thing. A lot of times these mental health emergencies might come on because they're stressed about deadlines or having to take a test, and they have bad test anxiety. It could be that they have personal things going on, plus they have school things, maybe work things on top of it, and there's just too many things compounding, and they get stressed out and they're not okay. Can you guys think of any other ways that any other signs that I might have missed that would indicate that somebody's in distress or having a mental health emergency?
How about if they're in class and their head's down?
Thank you, Tavante. Yeah. Like if they're normally an engaged person, but today they're just kind of, droopy like this, or if you're doing a Zoom session with them, maybe if they won't turn their camera on, are you guys okay? Everything all right? Or if they do, normally they're very interactive with you, and today they're just kind of quiet and letting you do your thing and they're doing their thing. That might be another way to be like, something's different today, right? A lot of times we're wanting to be able to recognize those things that are out of the norm, right? Those are good signs for us. John, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think kind of with the the body language, sometimes you can tell just by the way they're talking, and not necessarily maybe saying that they are just stressed or having a bad day, but once you've worked with some people long enough, you get to know the tone of their voice in normal conversations, and sometimes that tone will change.
Right. Yeah. So if they're normally very bubbly, but today they're really quiet, if they usually ask you a lot of questions or they want to have some small talk and then today they're not doing any of that. And then of course you do have the ones that come in and are obvious. They're screaming and they're yelling and they're, kind of having a fit and they're not okay. That's less common, but it definitely does happen when people are having overload. So you want to watch these are signs of people that we know. If it's somebody we don't know and we're like maybe working with somebody for the first time, it can be harder to detect if they're having a struggle. But we might say something like, especially if they're coming in for tutoring. So help me understand why you're here for tutoring. What is it that you need? And then if they're talking to you about, well, I'm really anxious about this, or I don't understand this, then you can watch for some of these cues to see if maybe it is causing them to have panic or disorder. It's not necessarily an emergency at that point, but it might be something that you can talk to them about. Hey, a counselor might be able to help you with that anxiety. Okay. If you do have an individual who is having a mental health emergency, it's important to know how to help them. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to talk to them. Okay. With your voice tone, you certainly do not want to be like militant, right? You don't want to be loud. You don't want to try to intimidate them or yell at them. You're going to want to use a calm, quiet voice. You want to be steady in your talking, even if you too are nervous or anxious. You want to try and be as level as you can be. With your body language, try not to look angry or disappointed, which is hard, right? But you don't want to be like, are you upset again? Or, oh, I had to deal with this. Okay, I wasn't prepared for this. Like this kind of distressed face doesn't say, I want to help you. So you want to try and be neutral also in your facial expressions, or showing compassion, showing that you care and that you're interested. Be open when you're standing with them. Okay. Let me relax with my camera. None of this where your arms are folded, hands on your hips, right? Because both of those types of stances tell the person, I don't really want to help you, right? Instead, we want to have our arms open. If we are using hand gestures, we want to limit them. I talk with my hands a lot, but when somebody's in distress, I want to be more calm and less animated with them. I would not touch the person, but if they're sitting in a chair, you might go and sit next to them. Do not sit across from people. When you sit across, it automatically makes it adversarial, and that person becomes defensive and they feel attacked. So if you can sit next to them, it helps them to say, oh, this person's on my team. We're on the same side. We are working against this problem. Try not to be behind the person. That can be terrifying for some people who are panicking if they've ever had a situation where people come up behind them and have hurt them or been intimidating to them. So you don't want to, sometimes you might think that you want to go behind a person, maybe put your arm around them. This is not the time to be doing that. This is not that right situation. So do not do that. If you're on Zoom with the person, obviously you can't sit next to them, but your body language can say, I'm interested and I want to listen. So you might lean in, right? You might put your hands on the desk or something like this so that they can see, I'm here and I'm ready to listen to you. Again, just emphasizing you don't want to use any sudden movements. You want to be calculated in your response so that the person doesn't think that you're trying to attack them or that you're going to try and make them move or do something against their will. Okay. Any questions about body language? Okay, I'll move on to the next thing, which is things to say or not say. Okay. It's counterintuitive, but the first thing I'm going to tell you is do not ask, are you okay? That tends to be a trigger for people. It tends to agitate people and it puts them on guard. Okay. And do not say things like, hey, we're at school. You're an adult. Grow up and deal with it. We definitely are not wanting to put the person down. We're not wanting to make that person feel like their issue or concerns are not important. We don't want to be telling people that this isn't the time or the place. Even if we think that, we don't want to say that because this person's clearly in distress and needs help and is not thinking, oh, I'm in the middle of class or I'm in tutoring or I'm in a meeting and I can't have this panic attack. They happen when they happen. Or I can't have this mental health emergency right now because it's inconvenient. You can't stop those things. So we don't want to invalidate what they're feeling. We don't want to use the words calm down. When you tell somebody to calm down, it inevitably has the opposite effect and it increases the anxiety and the stress and it doesn't help. Okay. We want to try avoiding the word you. Okay. We do not want to should on people. Shoulding is when you tell people, well, you should go to the counseling office. You should calm down. You need to listen to me. You need to stop. You should be able to handle this. We don't want to use any type of language like that. Okay. That person's already stressed enough. They're already in a situation where their thinking is not as clear as they would like it to be. They might be having problems with communicating with you. And if you're trying to tell them, you should do this, you should do that, it's going to be even more overwhelming for that person. What things can we say? What should we say? There's our should word. Do say things like, I'm here to help, or we're safe here, or we can work together to solve this problem. We want to try to be united with the person who is having the emergency. And so we want to try to use that we language. We can solve this. We can work together using us. It is us against your problem. Let's work together. I am here for you. I will listen. Trying to take the word you completely out of it. Okay. We want to validate their feelings, right? I can see that you're upset, or this looks like it's very frustrating. Or, whatever they're feeling that you can identify through their body language. It looks like you're really angry right now. I would like to help you. Okay. Do ask them if they want you to help them. Okay. And you can do that by saying something like, I'm seeing that you're distressed right now. What can I do to help you? Right? Or it looks like you're really frustrated and having a hard time. Can I help problem solve? What can we do together? If they do say, yes, I'm having a hard time, I do need some help, we want to ask them if they have a counselor or support person, family member or friend, somebody that they would feel comfortable talking with. So you can say, is there somebody I can call for you? Or would you like to call somebody? If they don't have that support or they don't have somebody that they want to contact, that's when you're going to offer and say, we have the Center for New Directions. Can I help you get there? right? If you're in person, it's nice if you say, I'll walk with you to go meet the counselor or the staff, and they can help us. Or let's call together to make you an appointment or see if somebody's available. If it truly is a crisis, then our C&D staff is prepared to contact a counselor. They'll either contact me or they'll contact Tavante, who is our other counselor. If we're not available, Caroline Brown is an intern. Sometimes she's on the floor, and we would contact her as well. There should never be a time that you can't get one of us. We can be interrupted for emergencies. So if somebody truly is having a crisis, they're talking about hurting themselves or hurting somebody else, and they need immediate help, we will find a way to help them. If you don't feel like it's that urgent or that immediate, then they can always call and make an appointment with us, and we will meet with them in person or over Zoom or on the phone, whatever is convenient and comfortable for everybody involved in that situation. If you can't even get to a point where you can ask them if they want to get help through a counselor or calling somebody, they might need some help just to be able to calm and process. There's some techniques called grounding, and I would like to share some of those with you guys. It would be helpful if you guys wanted to turn on your camera. I'm going to show you a progressive muscle relaxation, and then you could do it with me. All right, Jordan, you're off the hook because you have no camera. But I'm going to pretend like you're right here with me and you can do it too, okay? So for progressive muscle relaxation, I want to start, you can ask them, you're going to say something to them like, I see that you're having a hard time right now. What if we were to do something to help you to be able to breathe better, to be able to release some of this pressure and tension that's going on? Again, avoid the word calm down, okay? We're going to say alternative things. Say, how about we do a little bit of relaxation? Nobody's watching us. Nobody has to know what we're doing. We're just going to sit in our chair and we're going to kind of relax. So you can go head to feet or feet to head, whichever you prefer. But I always go feet up because that's just how I am. So you might tell them, hey, let's just curl up our toes in our shoes. Curl up your toes for a few seconds, hold it, and then release it, right? Again, like we're trying to not be obvious that we're doing this. So, you're not going to be lifting up your legs and like taking off your shoes, okay? Now let's tighten and release our calves, okay? Tighten them up and then hold it for a few seconds, let it go, okay? Now we're going to do our thigh and our butt area, right? We're going to tighten that up and let it go, okay? Then we're going to do our stomach and our chest. Okay, we're just sitting up straight, we're pulling in our stomach, and then we're going to let it go. Okay, maybe we're going to tighten our arms. So we're just going to make a little fist for a second. We're going to hold that, and then we're going to let it go. Okay, you might say, okay, let's just release some pressure from our head. Let's just twist our head a little bit, right? Okay, help them kind of get some of those kinks out. And then last, if you feel like they would be responsive to it, be like, let's do our face. Let's just make a scrunchy face. Just scrunch it up. Hold it for a minute and then let it go. Hopefully, by doing something like that, you're helping them to release some of the tension that they're holding. Okay. Another thing that you might consider is moving on to the grounding. So 5 senses is one that we thank you, Jordan. Yeah, that does work. It helps a lot. Is using your 5 senses, okay? And it can be in any order. There's not any particular, you have to do this. This is just an easy one. What are 5 things you can see, right? So what are some things you guys are seeing where you're at? Do you see any pictures? Do you see any chairs? Do you see a desk? What are you guys seeing?
Computer.
Computer, right? Okay. Yeah. So ask them to identify what they're seeing around the room. Okay. What are 4 things you can hear? If you're in a big room, maybe you're hearing printers or computers or telephones. Maybe you're hearing people breathing, people walking by, papers shuffling. Okay. It's really tuning into your surrounding and focusing on this moment right now. Okay. What are 3 things you can touch? Well, I can touch the desk. I can touch the chair. I can touch my own arms and legs, right? 2 things you can smell, right? Hopefully nothing bad, but right? Maybe you smell somebody's coffee, or you can smell a pop, or you smell some perfume, right? Something like that. What is 1 thing that you can taste? Maybe you're not eating anything right now, but maybe you taste the air. Maybe you're tasting leftover something that you had earlier. What do you got there, John? Cajun trail mix?
Yeah, you made me hungry, dang it.
Sorry. But, the idea of grounding is a way of calming down so that you can process and deal with what's happening around you, but just being distracted. It's a form of distraction. It's not meditation. So we're not closing our eyes. We're not, kind of doing the Zen thing, which is awesome and wonderful, but it's not what our goal is. And when we're trying to calm down in an emergency situation. Okay. Other types of grounding I want you guys to consider are counting. What are some things that you can count, right? Let's count backwards together from 100 and 100, 99, 98. You have to focus on those numbers, and you cannot be panicked and crazy when you're trying to focus on one thing like that. Okay. Let's count how many chairs there are in the room. Let's count all the tiles in the ceiling, right? If you're in my room, let's count how many bricks are on the back wall. Okay. Things that are just around you and that can be distracting. Okay. Sometimes you want to literally feel your environment. Okay. Let's ask them. Let's push our feet into the ground, right? That's literally grounding yourself. You just push your feet into the ground and feel where you're at. Okay. It's also helpful to make safety statements while you're doing things like this. So safety statements are things like, we are safe here. We are in the College of Technology. We're in the Center for New Directions. We're in a safe place. We are together. We are going to tackle this problem, right? As you're literally connecting, let's feel the chair. Is the chair hard or soft? Is it smooth or rough? What's it made of, right? Feel the desk. Is that, like I'm feeling my desk and I have a rough spot where the wood covering, the fake wood is come off, right? How does that feel? What am I experiencing? Because again, we're distracting from the emotional pain and we're moving our brain to focus on other things so that we can calm the person down. Okay. The next, you might list their favorites. Okay. Ask the person, so what's your favorite band? What's your favorite place you've ever been? What's your favorite food? What's your favorite sport? Who are your favorite players of that sport? Try to have a conversation like that where it's distracting them from the anger or the panic or the anxiety or whatever it is that they're going through at that moment. These things do not actually have to be said out loud. The person can just kind of think them through, or you can start listing things and see if they'll join you in the list. Okay. You might start saying, okay, I'm going to name for you all of my favorite flowers. If you want to join in, you can. And then, I really like tulips and I like hollyhocks and I like daisies, right? And then maybe they'll be like, oh, I like roses. I like dandelions, even though nobody else does. Whatever, right? Because again, we're distracting and trying to help them calm down so that then they can process what's going on, okay? Once they've kind of grounded, you can go back to asking them, can we get you some help? Is there someone I can call? Do you want to go to the counseling center? Do you want to, get your support person? Okay. But at any time that you're dealing with this person, if you feel like there's imminent danger to yourself, to somebody else, or to the person that you're dealing with, you need to call public safety, campus security, or you need to ask somebody else to do that for you. Okay. If you don't feel like you can make that phone call, you can text. There's an app that we can download for safety. You can send a message to somebody else saying, hey, I'm in this situation, please get me help, right? But don't deal with something on your own if you feel like there's danger, okay? If the person says to you that they do not want help, they don't want to call anybody, they don't want to come to the counseling center, then we want to reassure them and we want to say things like, I understand that you don't want help right now, but I'm here for you if you change your mind. Or we want to say things like, I recognize that you're not wanting help, but I want you to know that help is available. There's the Center for New Directions, or you can, here's a suicide text line or hotline number that you can call, or whatever resource that you can offer to them at that time. Okay, because they might not take it then, but they might think about it and use it later. Okay. So that's kind of what I prepared. What questions do you guys have? I know there's got to be things that I didn't cover that you're like, well, what if this or what if that?
So earlier we were talking about the hand gesture.
Uh-huh.
So when we're confronting a people, I mean not confronting, but if we see somebody in trouble, we're not allowed to do our hands folded or keep your hands on your waist.
Mhm.
Me coming from a different culture, I've encountered this a couple of times, not with people who are anxious or something like that, but just regular people too. And it gives them a different meaning to it. But for me, when I'm more concerned or like when I'm listening properly in any conversation that we're having, um, my behavior or like the environment that I grew up in, we fold our hands
Okay.
to show them that we are concerned. So,
Oh,
because of that culture gap, if I'm to deal with somebody that has any such issues, what would be a best option to do it?
okay. That is interesting, and I'm glad that you brought that up. So if you're dealing with somebody from the typical American culture, the arms crossed is a sign of being closed off, right? So you might go with clasped hands instead, because that people tend to represent that with calm and understanding. Tavante, do you have any other thoughts?
I think proximity is a big one. I know we got social distancing and everything, but kind of, you know, kind of being personal, and just your posture towards them, showing that you're engaged and you're concerned. Um, I don't know if that helps at all.
Yeah. The way that you were demonstrating folding your arms looks a little bit different to me. Like if you're folding your arms like maybe like this as opposed to like this, right? That can also make a difference, and maybe the person would not see that as being a closed off gesture. So you might consider that you do what is comfortable for you, but adding maybe leaning in. So, because leaning in is a sign of, I want to hear what you have to say, I want to listen to you, if that's something that you're comfortable with. Another thing that you might consider is just putting your hands to your side, which is not always comfortable, but at least it gives that person the idea of, okay, I know where their hands are. I know that they're not going to try to grab me. They're not going to try to force me to do something.
So yeah, I learned about this in one of my, I was talking to one of my counselors, not counselor, but like a advisor or something, and they told me about this hand gesture. So since
Right.
that I try to avoid it, but it's just like something I grew up learning for so many years, and it's
Right.
not easy to get rid of it. One trick that I learned is like put my hands behind my back, hold it, and then just lean forward to the person that I'm talking to.
That's great. Yeah, that would work. Putting your hands
But
behind you, and yeah,
but
absolutely.
in some but sometimes when I don't think about it, it just like comes naturally to me, and just I just fold my hands.
Yeah. And I think there is a difference in how you're folding your arms than a person who is truly, closed off and like, oh, I don't have time for this. I don't want to deal with you. Right. Um, I think that it can go with your facial gestures and and the overall posture of, I do want to hear what you have to say. I am interested. Yes, John.
Sorry, it took me a second to get this thing to unmute. One of the things that I do for me is I will usually ask them to say, hey, let's just go grab a seat. It's harder to be sitting down and be like this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just not comfortable. So it forces you to put yourself into that position where it's less likely to being closed off. It helps to be more open, I guess, if you're sitting down. Plus, if you're asking them can we go sit down, you're inviting them to let's be comfortable.
Right. And sitting down again, remember to try to sit side by side, right? One thing that can happen and that you do want to read the person and read the room, right? If they're very agitated and they're pacing or they're rocking, wringing their hands, kind of like this, doing things, getting them to sit down could be difficult. So just remember that and keep space between you guys. Again, we're always wanting to be socially and environmentally aware, right? Are there other people here that we need to pay attention to? So, hey, let's go find a room where we can be by ourselves and you can pace, right? And then maybe you sit down and let them just walk, right? Or, yeah.
So if it's somebody that's let's say that's more agitated or just really moving around, anxious, I've never considered it, but would that be something where maybe you could take a walk outside, so that way they can kind of get that energy out while they walk with you?
So that's something that you're going to want to judge based on how well you know that person, right? If you know the person pretty well and you feel like you're safe with that person, that they would not go outside and they're not in a situation where they're going to, try to bolt from you or run out into traffic, because they're upset, then yes, I think going for a walk is a great idea because that helps them to have to focus on that bilateral motion of walking. It can keep them get them grounded and focused back on the moment. But again, always with safety in mind. Okay. And that just goes back to, if you feel like you're in danger or somebody else is in danger, calling the campus security, because we don't want there to be an explosion or a situation. At any point during your dealings with these students, if they really are having a hard time, call our office and we can come and try and help de-escalate the situation. We can use some of our skills and talents and try and talk to them and help them through whatever it is that they're experiencing. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns?
I have a question. It's more of a concern. I see nowadays, like, I don't know, but nowadays a lot of people, including normal human beings, the students that I met, my colleagues, we all have anxiety and other things that goes on in our life. Some people deal with it, some people don't. But what might be the reason of like increasing number of people with like mental health disorder? a lot of people having PTSD, ADHD, and all other things. What might be a reason? Is it like their upbringing was not good, or like they deal with something? Because I think prioritizing humans as individual is a very important thing, but at the same time, when you're giving some person like too much attention, and then all of a sudden you like are not being able to give them that kind of attention that you were giving them, that might upset them and then bring their anxiety up. So what might be a sole reason for having like a lot of people nowadays having these mental health issues?
Okay, so if I'm understanding, what are some of the reasons that people have these mental health issues? Like, why does there seem to be an explosion of people with anxiety or PTSD? And then how do we help them so that we're not building that like codependency where one day I can really spend some time with you and the next day I don't have the time. And so how do you balance that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the reasons that we have seen a rise in mental health issues is the fact that we're talking about them. It's becoming normal to share our feelings and express what's going on with us, where it used to be that people didn't talk about it. Right now, we're getting to a point where we can say to each other, you know what, I'm really anxious about this pandemic, or I'm really having a nervous time with school, or I'm struggling because of X, Y, or Z, right? And we can have that shared anxiety and stress because the world just seems to be a stressful place. We're also finding more people are, going and getting services. And so more people are identifying, I do have depression, I do have anxiety, I do have post-traumatic stress disorder from a trauma that happened to me, or that I witnessed or heard about that is affecting me. So because society is becoming more open about that, we're more aware, we're seeing it, and that's one of the reasons for that. When you are dealing with somebody, you want to be available, but not be a crutch. And that codependency can be a tough line to navigate. So you want to do things like, I can help you to get to somebody who knows how to solve these problems, right? So I can be here to listen if you're having an emergency, but I'm not the right person to always come to because I'm not trained in that. And just being honest with them and telling that, that's a boundary that I have, is I can't be your counselor because I'm not a counselor, right? I want to help you any way I can, and I want to support you, but I don't know that I'm always the right person to handle these situations and for you to come to. But I can help you find the right person who is, right? And I think that most people are open to that and recognize that. And you can also, flat out just be like, I really want to listen to you, but I'm busy right now. How can I help you? Let's find somebody else who can talk to you, or maybe we can make an appointment to talk at a later time, so that it's not, I'm always going to drop everything and pay attention to you, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It's just like in past couple of months, I made like 5 or 6 new friends, and then when I speak, just like getting to know each other a little bit better. Everybody has some sort of issue. There's like, my anxiety is this, I'm taking medication for that. Or I have this, and like I'm having like, I can't sleep, I have sleeping disorders, I'm taking this heavy dose of melatonin and like other stuff. It made me think to a point, like I made like 5 or 6 friends, and all of them have some sort of mental health issues. Like, is anybody normal nowadays? It made me question. And all of these are like youngsters, like people in their early 20s, and like 18, in their teenage. And like, if everybody's like growing up having problems, issues, like by the time they like get into adulthood, I'm not sure if everybody's going to be back to normal or some stuff. Even if we are providing so many help, I've heard like Pocatello high schools or like these areas, they provide like mental health services nowadays too, because students from that age start having like mental health issues. So it's like really more of a concern for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
but maybe since we're openly talking about it, we're figuring things out. But yeah, it's completely new, and like it made me question myself: do I have anxiety? do I have stress? That I had to go check myself up too.
Right. So one of the things with the younger generation, they are more open about talking about emotions, about seeking out counseling or going to doctors for those types of issues. There seems to be a lot of new disorders that are related to social media. We have a lot of anxiety because there's bullying online. We have a lot of anxiety because when you go and you post on social media, you want to try to make yourself look perfect. You can get anxiety because you didn't get enough likes, or people get anxiety because they compare themselves to other people who look perfect on social media as well, right? There's they follow a lot of influencers. They use a lot of different platforms where they want to increase their own popularity. And so I think the world has become a little bit more anxious because of those types of things, because there's a lot more comparing, there's a lot more of pressure to be something that people just can't be. And nobody's perfect, nobody's ever going to be perfect, but everybody wants to think that the other person is, right? So I think that it's partly that, it's part of society has said, you know, we're going to put all this pressure on you, and that's creating some of those anxiety issues. And I think the new normal is I have anxiety, right? I think it's kind of becoming that. So one of the things that we can do when we're relating to some people, if they seem like they're having panic or anxiety and they're out of sorts, is just normalize. Everybody has these problems. Everybody is experiencing anxiety at some point. Everybody has stress at some point. Everybody has a sad story. You know, it's how we choose to deal with it that makes the difference. And for some people, we have to have medications because our brains don't make the right chemicals. For other people, they can go to counseling and talk through the problem and be just fine. For other people, it's I'm going to push myself and I'm going to just act like it never happened, and then I'm going to create more problems, right? There's lots of different ways to deal with all the things that we're facing and having to handle. So, any other questions? I appreciate you guys participating. Okay, well, I had an outline that I used for our discussion today. I will go ahead and email that to everybody who was on with us today. And I want to thank everybody for comments and participation. If you guys think of any questions later, you're welcome to email me, call me, or come by and see me. And we can have more conversations. Okay. All right. You guys have a great day. Thank you.